everybody. Welcome back to the show, Science Dispatch Podcast, episode 64. My name is Cameron English. I am your host as always. Joined again by Dr. Chuck Dinnerstein, Director of Medicine at the American Council on Science and Health, and Dr. Barbara Billauer, our resident legal scholar who writes about bioethics and all of those awkward questions that you all want answers to, but don't want to talk about. That's what Barbara's here for. How are both of you? Great to see you again.
Good, very good.
Doing really well, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's jump into our story for the day here. This is by our very own Dr. Dinnerstein. It's called Proposing a Schedule Change for Marijuana. So Chuck, let me read this intro and then take it away. Tell us what's going on here. So you write, the Controlled Substances Act places all substances that were in some manner regulated under existing federal law into one of 5 schedules. This placement is based on the substance's medical use, potential for abuse, and safety or dependence liability. The FDA has proposed changing the classification of marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 drug. Let's break down its thinking. Okay, Chuck, what's their thinking here?
So there's two pieces to the puzzle. A Schedule 1 drug has no medical use and it has a high potential for abuse. So this is basically heroin, all the psychotropic drugs are all falling into that general category. And there's been a move afoot for the last several years to change the scheduling for marijuana. I mean, the states have done this on a state-by-state basis in terms of either making it medical uses or decriminalizing it for recreational use, but there's no overarching federal guidelines. And so the FDA, Health and Human Services, have got together and have made a proposal to change the scheduling of that. So the first interesting fact is that the decision to reschedule it from a 1 to a 3, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute, is not up to any health agency at all. It's up to the Drug Enforcement Agency, a law enforcement group. And so they will take the report on the science under advisement and then make a decision from there as to how they would like to proceed, which will be the case. The case for switching it from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3, Schedule 3 drug has medical uses and it has some small abuse potential. And the bulk of what the FDA wrote about was to address both of those claims. It's pretty straightforward to show that there are medical uses for the cannabinoids, specifically THC. It's used in an FDA-approved drug called Marinol, which is used for treatment of nausea and vomiting and chemotherapy. And it's used in a drug called Syndros, which is for muscle spasms for multiple sclerosis. So they're on pretty good standing to argue that the cannabinoids, and in particular THC, has medical properties. They do go on to discuss some of the other uses for it in pain management and other areas, and the data there is iffy at best. The more difficult problem for them to overcome was the abuse potential of THC. And for that, they took a different tact. And they write very clearly in there that usually when discussing a schedule change, they talk about comparator drugs in the Schedule 1 versus the Schedule 3. In this case, while they did do those comparisons and marijuana was certainly not as didn't certainly have the abuse potential of the other Schedule 1 drugs, they did include alcohol in their discussion. And alcohol is not a scheduled drug at all. And most of their decisions about abuse were posited against alcohol. And I think the reason for that is that we now have a long-standing tradition of allowing alcohol use in the country. And they typically said marijuana has a lower abuse potential compared to alcohol, with higher rates of overdose deaths, hospitalizations, and social problems than marijuana. And on that basis, I think that's why they made the recommendation that it be rescheduled as a Schedule 3. two more little factoids, and then I'll open it up for whatever we want to talk about. Having grown up in the 70s and been exposed to Reefer Madness before whatever show was being shown at college, they had to address the issue of whether marijuana was a gateway drug or an immediate precursor to other controlled substances. And unlike the rest of the report, they handled it in one line. And as they just said, marijuana is not an immediate precursor to any other controlled substances. End of the conversation. Moved on. The import of all of these schedule changes will not be a change that any marijuana user, medicinal or recreational, will discover. This will really only change the rulings for the growers and the wholesalers and the retail sales that will allow them access to the federal banking system, so that the marijuana industry will be able to access capital for loans and use credit cards and other features of banking and get away from a cash-only economy. And that's it.
So lots to get into here, but question for you, Barbara. What's the legal impact of this going to be? Is it going to facilitate changes in the law at the state level? Are we going to see use increase? Are we going to see more broad acceptance of marijuana use? What's going to happen on that front, would you say?
I think you put your finger on it. The lawyers are gearing up. There are law firms that are starting marijuana units, and they're already all chafing at the bit on how to facilitate all of these legal mechanisms, banking, sales. So the lawyers are already, the growers are already, not just in the U.S., but in other places that track the U.S. And that means that there will be more drug available. And so one question that I wanted to ask Chuck is, well, the first question is, using alcohol as a comparator seems to be a little bit forced. Alcohol is here. There's nothing we're going to do about it. It's considered a foodstuff. It may have bad effects, so does food. Too much food is not good for you. Too much aspirin is not good for you. Too much sunlight is not, too much anything is not good for you. And too much. So to say, well, marijuana is not as bad as alcohol, what does that have to do with anything? Alcohol is a given, it's here. We need to, in my opinion, compare marijuana to marijuana or to anything else. And there have been articles that I've read of physicians saying, what if I have a patient who's abusing marijuana and who's driving? Do I have an obligation to report that patient? So once we legalize on a national basis or take some of the taint off marijuana, we're going to find it's going to be advertised more. And the more, and it's not advertised now, and the more the drug is advertised or the substance is advertised, the more use it will be. So if we say marijuana is not so dangerous now, it's not so dangerous now in the collective dose. When I say the collective dose, I mean the societal dose in which it's used. But once we start making it more available, number one, it will be much more available. Number two, the onus will be taken off having it. So people who were arguably very law and order oriented will say, well, it's okay now, so I can have it. And then the advertising potential, there will be a lot more usage of it. So we don't really, I think, have a valid dose comparator between the amount alcohol is used with all its advertising and all its social acceptance with what marijuana is going to be used at a much higher collective dose level.
And I'm gonna disagree, because I think that most of the people that are interested in token up are already able to get a hold of it, whether it's on the retail market, the gray market, or the black market. It's been around for a long time, and most of the states at this point have means of getting marijuana. So I don't know that we're going to see a big title shift simply because of a schedule change at the federal level. That's why I said I think it has mostly to do with banking laws. A lot of the rules are already in place in terms of advertising, and obviously you have not been to San Francisco, because there are very large billboards Tell me if I'm wrong here.
No, you're 100% correct, and they're like
Very large billboards as you roll into town from the
they're like
airport.
they're embarrassingly unsubtle too. It's like it's like every other writing's in green, and it's like renew your whatever here. Like it's a very subtle wink, wink, hint, hint.
Yeah.
We got your gummies.
And I'll tell you, there are senior citizens discounts and loyalty cards and everything else that you'd expect to find in a thriving business is already in place in California and the other states. In fact, since I've been writing about pot, I get stuff from the PR firms, and I got a notice the other day if I wanted to come and write a piece about the first at-home delivery service for Long Island City in Manhattan.
Are you getting
that they're
free
finally getting
samples?
everyone-
That's the question.
I don't think there's anything free in the business, but I'll report back if I pick up that assignment.
If you show up eating Doritos to one of these, I think we'll have our answer to.
That'll be the first sign, exactly. The Dorito eating.
Okay, well
I'm not.
go ahead, Barbara. Just as we wrap up, I mean, is this good? Is this bad? Should we be ambivalent?
We won't know. I don't think we're going to have the full impact until it's done. I do have in my hand another article about cannabis use linked to higher anxiety disorder risk in a study in 12 million Ontarians. So we're getting slowly dribbling information about, quote unquote, how dangerous it is, and it's coming out little by little. So I think that there have been cases, Chuck, you've written about marijuana poisoning, quote, in children. I think there will be more reports, things that have gone under the table because people did not want to admit to it, will be less reticent about saying that they've used it. And I think we're going to have much more, this is my sense, we're going to have much more documented harm. It may have been there already, but I think we're going to see much more harm. And so I think the risk-benefit ratio, the calculus will change. That doesn't mean that the schedule shouldn't change, as Chuck pointed out. The drug certainly has beneficial effects, but I think that we're going to find that it's much more dangerous than the data now shows. But we'll have to see, because I think the horse is out of the barn. I think Chuck is absolutely right. I will tell you that having grown up about when Chuck did, when I was in college, I lived in the fourth floor of the dorm, and I'd never smoked marijuana, but I sure inhaled on the way up. And so, contrary to Clinton, I never smoked, but I sure inhaled. I mean, it was all over the place. So most of us grew up with this stuff.
It's a very big business, and you know how big businesses are. They often get their way.
Yes, I think that's right.
All I can say is welcome to my hell to both of you, because I've been in California my whole life. The harm reductionists, for all their good things they do, they've carried the day with pot. So not almost a day goes by where I walk down the street and I can just smell the dank, thick funk of marijuana emanating out of somebody's yard. So,
So you inhaled too.
Yeah, you go outside with your 2-year-old to get some fresh air, and you get a little contact high. That's the beauty of America. All right. Any final thoughts here, Chuck? Do you have any health concerns? It seems like you see that there's some value in this. Barbara, you seem a little bit more skeptical. Are we going to notice a public health impact here?
I think you will see a public health impact over time, because it just like as anything, when you scale it up, you get a lot of other people doing things that you didn't anticipate. I would go with the same thing that I've said, and we all say about combustible tobacco. It makes very little sense to inhale combustible pot. There's a lot of other chemicals you're taking in. So if that's going to be the case, then vaping or the edibles may be a less harmful approach overall. And I'll leave it at that.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Again, like with so many topics, we'll have to revisit this, especially with the laws changing. There will be lots of fun stories and probably some sad ones as well. But we'll see what happens. So in the meantime, follow us on social media. The organization is at ACSH.org on Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days. I'm at Cam J. English. And Chuck and Barbara, as always, are smarter than I am, and they avoid social media. So yeah, You got to email us. They'll both get back to you, though. They love to interact with readers. Just be polite. Don't be a jerk. And you'll hear back. You'll hear back. That's the rule. And with that, we are all done. We will see you next week for episode 65.
Thanks, guys. Signing off. Bye-bye.